Hello friends, Jay Dizzy here, bringing you another Dota 2 video on behalf of Dota Alchemy. And before I get into this video, which by the way is going to be on the fact that I think Magnus is the best hero in Dota right now, and I'm going to give you some reasons why. But I want to make an announcement, and that's that Donnie and I are discontinuing subscriptions on the site, and we're opting to do a Patreon instead. We have a Patreon at patreon.com/DotaAlchemy. To be completely frank with you, we think that it's bullshit to have, and stupid of us to have content behind a paywall just because we're growing our channel right now. And also just the fact that there are so many sites that are just trying to be Game Leap, trying to be the guide site. And we said, you know, fuck it. We're just going to do it completely for free. And basically, you know, if the community is feeling generous, then we have the Patreon there. I think a lot of people assume we were making a shitload of money or something because it's like a subscription site, legitimate business. We really weren't. It was... you know, just another place that we were uploading videos very similar to the YouTube, and we figured it's kind of redundant, and we'd rather just take whatever it is that people want to be generous and give us through Patreon, maybe do like sponsored videos, just the typical YouTube approach, and that way we're not just some Game Leap clone, essentially. But in any case, without further ado, let's just get right into the video. First and foremost, I think it's really important to mention here that at the end of the previous patch, Magnus was starting to be considered a first phase hero, and I want to cover some of the reasons why Magnus was considered good in the previous patch, and then we can go over what was changed to make him even better now than he was before, because if you take a first phase hero and you buff it, you probably are going to make that hero S tier, like, you know, that tier that's above first phase where it's just insta-ban in every single game. But basically, Magnus was picked in the previous patch because what you would do is you would pick him with some sort of hero that would benefit from the empower. You would empower yourself and then empower another hero, maybe pick up a tanky hero like an ogre or a high base damage hero like a shadow shaman, and just run at your opponents and win the lane. Once you got to level 3, level 4 on Magnus, now you have the Shockwave ability, which has always been one of the lowest mana cost for damage nukes in the game. So once you have the Shockwave and you've gotten to that point using the strength of Empower, you can now harass people out of the lane using this Shockwave ability, and there are very, very few heroes that can sit in lane against Magnus. Prior to the end of the previous patch, people were struggling to get to that level 4, level 5 points on Magnus, and that's kind of why he was considered to be weak. But then people started picking him with these really strong laning heroes, and then all of a sudden you have a good lane on a hero that transitions really well into the mid game, pushes people out of lane once he gets some levels, and then you have this hero that is going to increase your carry's farm by a huge order of magnitude with that Empower. On top of that, once you get a Blink Dagger on Magnus, the reverse polarity is basically like a better Enigma's black hole. You don't have to sit there and channel it. It actually pulls people in, which you can then have your carry cleave them down. Basically, this hero has every single thing that you want in a Dota hero all in one package. Wins the lane, transitions really well into the mid game, owns the mid game, owns in the late game, because he can help you farm in the mid game, and then he can win you team fights in the late game. So basically, that's why Magnus was first phase pick in the previous patch. That's why Axe was first phase pick in the previous patch as well. But now Magnus is better. So now Magnus is even stronger at laning, and that is because the change to Shockwave is essentially that now this ability pulls people towards Magnus. And when I first read this change, I was thinking, okay, if this is anything like the Aghanim Scepter on Magnus, it's going to be pretty goddamn useless. But that's not considering the fact that the old Aghanim Scepter, for what it did, it was 4,200 gold, and I would say that if you could pay 4,200 gold or even 2,000 gold to get this change to the Shockwave, it's not going to be worth it. But the fact is, Magnus now has this, you know, totally for free. There's no cost to having this. It's just part of the ability because it's been reworked. And what this allows you to do is essentially in lane, where previously people would get away from you with like 1 or 2 right clicks away from dying, which by the way happens a lot, and then you would skewer and then they'd be like 1 right click away from dying. Basically, you will kill them now because you can just pull them back, especially if you have some sort of Ogre Magi, some sort of, you know, Shadow Shaman hero that you can pull back into some sort of disable like Ignite or Ogre Magi's Fire Blast. Here's a situation where I was in a game, I was going for the bounty rune, Bat ends up getting it, but he runs away, and you think, okay, I used the skewer already, so Bat gets away totally scot-free. No, I pull him back into the Ogre, who gets the Ignite off, has boots, and we beat the living shit out of him. So the thing is, I do end up dying here, which probably isn't worth it, other than the fact that maybe I want to make a lane rotation after this, because the Bat came down to this lane, and I don't want to lane against the Bat. But in any case, Bat would not have died in the previous patch. Right, like this hero can now kill people that he couldn't previously kill in the laning stage, and this isn't even including what you can do in the game with the repositioning that you can pull off with this shockwave ability. I've seen people pull somebody back for a disable. I've seen people use the shockwave to pull people into like a black hole or something like that. You can really use this to completely fuck up a team fight for the enemy team if you use it well enough. And remember, this is all in an ability that was already really good in the previous patch. The second reason that Magnus is way stronger in this patch than he was in the previous patch is that a lot of people now are maxing out Empower, or at least getting a few early points in it and then maxing out the Shockwave. And with these early game items that people are building with the Wraith Bands, Bracers, and Null Talismans, now you have all of these heroes running around with a huge amount of base stats, because these items all give base stats. And look at this Slark. So he has plus 68 damage right now, and then plus 74% cleave. So he is gaining more than a Battle Fury's worth of stats just from Magnus's Empower. And you can have this on 2 people at level 7. So you're essentially just allowing your team to flash farm, but also simultaneously they can build these early game centric items and fight in the early game and be a lot stronger, because that base damage, that bonus damage, it doesn't just work on creeps. So Magnus bridges that gap where it's like, okay, we want to be able to both fight in the early game and farm really quickly in the jungle. You don't need to choose between a Battle Fury and these early game items, or whether or not you want to farm or to fight. You can just do whatever you want in the game, and you're going to do it well, because he essentially lets you do both. It's absolutely unreal. So the second part of that is that Magnus himself benefits massively from the Bracers. He's a hero who has really nice stats and stat gains. So essentially, if you build into these Bracers, even with going for Arcane Boots, you can see that at 11 minutes into the game, I have 1700 HP, 8.9 regen, 38% magic resist, and then all of these repositioning abilities and this escape. This hero feels almost impossible to kill. So with these Bracers, you can actually run around and be effective before your Blink Dagger by just kind of acting as like a frontline tank. And if you're a frontline tank, just like Enigma when he builds into like Crimson Guards and stuff like that, you can get off these big teamfight ultimates just by virtue of the whole enemy team having to go on you. So now Magnus has this ability to contribute before the Blink Dagger when it comes to fighting. That wasn't really a thing before. Now it is, and then of course with the Shockwave you can contribute as well, because that allows you to do some other cool stuff in fights rather than just blink and RP. So this hero has so many options available to him now in the game, and he did not have those before. I realized as I was recording this that I neglected to mention in the first clip that Shockwave now slows by 60% for 0.6 seconds as well, which is pretty effective when you consider the fact that it also pulls back, and it's this super useful nuke as well, and the low cooldown on it. It's just an insane ability now. But in any case, that's not what this clip is about. What I want to talk about is Empower and why it's so strong right now. So one of the most important reasons that Magnus is incredibly powerful right now is basically because of the changes to Cleave. So Cleave was changed so that it is affected by armor, which means if you cleave off somebody who has 0 armor and you hit 2,000 and somebody is standing right next to them and they have armor that gives them 50% reduction, they're only going to take 1,000 damage. So you'd think that would be a nerf to Magnus, but what they did to account for that is that they changed his Empower so that the cleave damage is now 75% instead of 50% at max level from Empower. And also, the distance of cleave is 650 instead of 625. So what that means is if you're cleaving on creeps, which, by the way, most creeps have very low armor, you are going to do way more damage than you did in the previous patch with Cleave. So that means that Empower is way more incredible for farming creep waves and pushing creep waves and for farming jungle camps, because all of these things have very low armor values. And also now, when you cleave, you're going to hit the range creep because of that increased distance. So this is just one of the best farming abilities in the game, and it's honestly way better than Battle Fury is. Magnus is so strong because of this Empower. It just allows you to beeline down lanes, kill creep waves in a couple of hits, and be a very annoying presence on the map for just pushing and pressuring lanes. The final reason that I think Magnus is way better right now than he was in the previous patch is basically because all of the carries that are currently considered to be overpowered are carries that traditionally in other metas would be picked with Magnus because they are these melee, right-clicking, insane DPS heroes with really high base damage. You have your Slarks, Troll Warlords, PAs. All of these heroes love to be empowered. Even Juggernaut is getting picked a lot. Basically, any carry that you can pick is going to be amazing with Magnus. So you can just first pick Magnus, the enemy team can block pick 2 carries, and you will still have a better late game lineup than them because there will still be a Magnus hero in the carry role that can be played that is considered to be just as strong as those heroes that they block picked. So that's it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to get your MMR while you still can with this hero because I am absolutely sure it will be nerfed soon. Every single pro is complaining about this hero on Twitter. And by the way, like I said at the start of this video, Donnie and I now have a Patreon. It is patreon.com/DotaAlchemy. If you're feeling generous or you want access to a bunch of other like exclusive videos, like I'm going to be doing vlogs from some of these like tournaments that I'm going to and stuff like that. We're going to put coaching replays and stuff like that on there too. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, we have a bunch of perks on there. At the very least, give it a gander and see if there's anything that you like. So thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope to see you in another video.